Hey listeners, last year was our 15th year of the best in food storytelling. As we head into 2025, we're kicking off a contest in collaboration with the podcast series Feast and Harmony and Sixth Man, where you have the opportunity to win a 4-night cruise for 2 on Chefs Making Waves, a food, wine, and spirits festival at sea. When you donate to HRN, you'll be entered for the chance to win a porthole cabin for 2 on Chefs Making Waves, sailing May 5th through 9th, 2025, from Miami to Cozumel, Mexico on Norwegian Gem. You'll also support another year of great food storytelling with a portion of your donation going toward disaster relief for the food and beverage communities within Western North Carolina and Southern California. This cruise is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for culinary adventurers, featuring top celebrity chefs including Jonathan Waxman, Antonio Lafaso, Robert Irvine, and many, many more. There's a myriad of experiences such as restaurant takeovers, live food and mixology demos, themed parties, and more. To enter your chance to win, please visit heritageradionetwork.org/cruise. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 21 or over to enter. That's heritageradionetwork.org/cruise.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Jazz Cabbage, hosted by me, food writer and armchair philosopher Chala June. We've been on this culinary expedition across the wide world of weed culture for a number of weeks now, and I have a cannabis confession to make to you, my little cabbages. Even though they're usually the cheapest and most accessible edibles you can find on the market, I absolutely hate gummies. I have so much love and respect for people who make and consume gummies, but please, for the love of God, keep them away from me. Okay, maybe hate is a strong word, and perhaps I'm being a bit dramatic. I mean, I haven't always been repulsed by the gelatinous cannabis confection. There was, in fact, a time when I myself was a fanatic, obsessed with the convenience, consistency, and discretion that one little gummy afforded me. But as I got older and started developing the kind of palate where too much sugar coats your teeth and gives you headaches, the sugar crash that I'd experience after eating a saccharin gummy stopped being worth the ride of the high. Unfortunately, if you're like me and like to get stoned without all the extra sugar, the options at the dispensary can feel pretty limited. Gummies make up about 70% of the US edibles market, and due to their low production costs and high shelf stability, almost every major edibles producer has a line of gummies out there. But with cannabis legalization becoming more widespread, more chefs and food-focused folks are seizing the opportunity to enter the edibles arena and redefine the category as a whole. This week, I had the opportunity to sit down with one such innovator, Chef Hawaii Mike Salman, who brought his lifelong passions for food and cannabis together to create the first true culinary brand to hit New York's legal dispensary shelves. Welcome back to Jazz Cabbage. I'm your host, Chala June, and on today's show, we have Hawaii Mike Salman, co-founder and CEO of Chef for Hire, a culinary lifestyle company that uses the universal language of food to normalize cannabis. Hawaii, welcome to Jazz Cabbage, and thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chala.
I've already warmed the audience up a little bit, but would you like to introduce yourself and the brand more formally?
More formally than you already did. It was so formal. That was our formalities. But yeah, I'm Hawaii Mike. Like Chala said, I am the co-founder of Chef for Hire. We are a true New York legacy brand built and established to launch in the legal market here as the first culinary brand. Like, we really felt that was important to carve out and create a category. We're also BIPOC, AAPI, and female owned. And, I think we got a pretty interesting story and position in the market. So, again, excited to be here.
You definitely do. And I feel like this conversation right here has really been years in the making. To give the audience a little backstory, you and I first met in 2022 when I moderated a panel discussion on culinary cannabis at the Luxury Meets Cannabis conference in New York. A little shout out to Jed Wexler and the LMCC team. And I think before we even got on stage for the actual panel, we had a chance to chat about the brand and about your mission and really vibe. And, there was this instant alignment and connection between the work that you do and the work that I was really seeking to do by bringing more of this intentional storytelling around cannabis to traditional culinary audiences. And in the years since, I've been fortunate enough not only to attend some of your incredible Chef for Hire dinners, but also to work with you in the kitchen for some of your events and host my own pop-up dinner at your social club, Fly Private Social. So before even jumping into the questions that I've prepared, I just want to take another moment to truly thank you, not only for being here, but for all of the work you do and to give you your flowers for everything you do for New York's cannabis community, not just as an entrepreneur, but also as a mentor and a champion for young emerging talent in this space and in this industry. So thank you for your guidance and your generosity and your leadership. It really feels important to say.
Received with gratitude. I appreciate that. This is great to be seen and acknowledged. So again, I truly do appreciate that.
Of course.
And I always want to give back. And I think there's so much information in cannabis and in food. I would be remiss to not share that and to hold on to that. Like, we need to get that out there. We need to normalize this as best we can. I think sharing of information and experience is super important when it comes to that. So
I truly wish that everyone in this industry and in this world had your mindset on that, because there's definitely a lot of stinginess and gatekeeping. But like you said, there really is so much. There's an abundance of information, an abundance of experience out there that we can all learn from. And speaking about abundance of experience, you've been in the cannabis space for decades now, and your work in cannabis is also deeply entwined with your work in the world of hip hop. If you could share your cannabis origin story and how that led to the founding of Chef for Hire.
No, sure. So I'm originally from San Francisco, and my parents were musicians. My father, to subsidize his income, was selling trees on the side. And years later, I actually found out he was actually purchasing from Dennis Perone, which was kind of like, oh, wow, that's kind of amazing. Like, he was going to the farmer's market. He just told me these stories, like, probably in the last 3 years. He's like, you don't remember Dennis? I used to take you down there. You'd be on my shoulders and we'd go buy a pound or two. I was like, no, I don't remember. I was on your shoulders. How would I remember this?
And for people who don't know, Dennis Perone is one of the kind of godfathers of the modern cannabis movement.
No, I would say he is the. He was basically why and how Prop 215 started, which was the beginning of legal cannabis in California. And so they were helping, AIDS patients and other people that had terminal diseases and other things of that nature. And that's how we really, truly got it moving forward. So as I reflect a lot, and I've been doing a lot of that lately, I just really feel like this has just been my path. Like, this is my story. And it's given me so much opportunity to just be present in the now. But to go back to the story, I just started probably when I was like 14, 15. I started just pinching the bags, and I was selling to my friends and selling to my friends' parents. And at the same time, I was into hip hop. I was a b-boy. I was in a crew. We were getting paid to dance. And so I would end up in different places, in nightclubs. And we ended up sneaking into this convention called the Gavin. And it was basically a record industry convention. And so people from record labels and artists and all kinds of different showcases were happening. And this was like 1990, 91. And then I was going in there and I was selling weed. And by 1992, I saw these guys 2-3 times. And a couple of people were like, yo, if you come to New York, we'll get you an internship. So cannabis really also jump-started my career in the music industry. And it was like February, I think, of 92. By June, I moved to New York with like $2,000 in my pocket and, was in the music industry. I worked for this small company, but we did like Diamond D and Ed O.G. and the Bulldogs. And I ended up road managing Mobb Deep during the Infamous album. And I went to the Source magazine after that. as a marketing manager. Then I became the lifestyle editor. And this whole time I'm selling weed. And I'm the guy that, has the Cali weed, and I'm going to the labels. I'm just, I'm here and there. And so it's really just been part of my life in general, but also just my career. It's provided opportunities, and cannabis and hip hop to me are almost synonymous in a way. Like, I've either met you through one or the other, and then we've connected through food. Right. And that's where we've kind of had the conversations and gotten able to break bread and get to know each other. And that's really become my trifecta. I really don't do much outside of those things. And it's been so interesting, man, talking about this lately, because it's purpose. It's your path. It's trusting that, you're never not where you're supposed to be. And it's just been liberating, refreshing to just surrender into it all and just appreciate how I got here and know that this is, like I said, exactly where I'm supposed to be.
And that's incredible, because there's so much I find when you're really tapped into cannabis and really tapped into the plant itself, not just the culture of smoking and getting stoned and everything, but when you're tapped in to this beautiful, life-giving, life-affirming plant, there are so many of these moments of alignment that really happen, that really come together. And I think for me personally, the more I've been vocal and outspoken about my cannabis use and my love for the plant, the more that's weeded out the people who didn't need to be in my life and attracted in
Mm-hmm.
the people who have needed to be in my life. So I would love to hear you speak more specifically to how this beautiful fusion of hip hop and food and cannabis really came together to shape Chef for Hire.
Because of my history and everybody knowing me from cannabis and the music industry, in 2012, when Colorado and Washington went legal, everybody was like, yo, what are you going to do? I know you're moving out to one of those places and you're going to start doing something. I know you're going to create a brand. And at the time, my marriage wasn't in the greatest place. I had my son, and I just was dedicated to the family side, and I couldn't just up and leave and go to Cali and launch a brand, right? Or go to Colorado and launch a brand. And I happened to meet somebody randomly. I was out, I think I was at like Beauty in Essex, and somebody gave me a drink, like a nutcracker that was infused with bubble hash. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. And, met her, and then we kicked it. And we actually started a company called Epic Moments back in 2013, I think it was, or 2014, one of the two. If you go back to Instagram, you can look it up and see it. And long story short, it didn't work out. But she was culinary, and she came from Seattle, and she was doing food out there. And it was just kind of serendipitous, again, to meet somebody else that gave me some information, enough information to where I was intrigued and wanted to learn on my own. And I just started doing it. And, we did the regular things that everybody did. We made cookies and brownies and Rice Krispie treats and all the things that are quote unquote edibles, right? And then as things started to progress a little bit, I started to try to make gummies. And did the Jello thing like everybody else did, and found out those are unstable and they'll never set properly, and you always have to refrigerate them. And I just dove deep and just started getting information off the internet. I started getting like culinary textbooks. So I was getting like confectionery textbooks that the schools are using, and then trying to figure out from there, and finally got a recipe for the gummies that worked really well. But then I found out about the endocannabinoid system. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I was like, we have a symbiotic relationship with this plant. I was like, wait a second, it wants to create homeostasis for a whole entire internal environment. I'm like, my head was just like, I just exploded. But this is 2014. So I can't run around to everybody in the streets or at parties and be like, yo, did you know about this? They look at me like an alien. Like, it was too early, right? And the food thing, it was like, wait a second, it's this universal language. Everybody has an endocannabinoid system. Everybody has to eat. Why don't we use that food to educate people? One, to bring people together, to celebrate our oneness because everybody eats, to have people with intention sit at a table and have a singular experience. And then have this at the end, like epiphany or empowerment moment of, wow, I never experienced anything like that. what else could I do? How else could this be something? And that's kind of how our supper clubs were born. So August 2015, well, actually, they started with our friends. Like, we were getting people smacked. I was probably doing like 150 milligrams per dinner. You know, people at dessert would be like, "Oh, can I go sit down somewhere?" You turn around, they're asleep. So we really used the supper clubs as a way to dial in what we were doing. And then through that, naturally, we were like, oh, well, we're using extra virgin olive oil, so that should be a product. We've been using honey a lot, and honey's great because it has other, prebiotic and helps with digestion. Local honey has effects with allergies and allergy season. There's all these other benefits. And it's like, wait a second, now we can couple this with superfoods. And so we have a superfood times a superfood, and now we have super products. And it was just like, it just kept growing. And it was literally our test kitchen. And we would try to break menus. We would try to break recipes. And we found that the only limitation to what you can infuse is your imagination. Like, you can really do pretty much anything. And so that's basically how the Chef for Hire products were born. And the name ironically came about because we saw an opportunity to create an agency. And so, shout out to my man Philip Leeds. We created Agency for Hire. And then everything we did was going to be an extension of something for hire, right? Because we love the double entendre of it. And so it's like, let's just call this Chef for Hire. And that's how the name was built. We trademarked it in 2017. We developed our packaging in 2017. And then the whole idea was to be like, all right, cool. We saw other products in other markets, but it was kind of disjointed. It will be like this flour brand all of a sudden is infusing olive oil, or this random honey is one product that's out in the market. So it wasn't like a cohesive story. It wasn't saying, somebody didn't say like, hey, we're a culinary company. These are the products that we use in our kitchen. And we think food and consuming cannabis through this food, something you already do every day, is the most seamless and healthiest way to incorporate the benefits of cannabinoids into your lifestyle. It's the diet. And we think this is going to be the future of it. And we think New York is going to be the future of, federal and legalization is going to be the tipping point. So 22 immutable laws of marketing say either be first or create your own category. So we created our own category and became the first culinary brand. That was our goal since 2019, was to be the first culinary brand in the New York legal market.
And
which we accomplished.
Which you accomplished, and is no small feat, especially as not only a first of its kind culinary brand in the legal market, but also as a brand that successfully made the transition over from what we call the legacy market, aka those who were in operation before the law kind of caught up with the times, over from the legacy market into the legal licensed market. And there have been many brands that have tried to make that transition that haven't been able to. So what does it mean to you to have this first of its kind brand in the market? And what was that process like of transitioning over from legacy into legal?
I mean, the transition, it was a lot of like research and understanding what the opportunities are in the market. How do you participate in the market? What are the things you got to look out for, right? Where are the pitfalls at? Where are people struggling? Where are people winning? How are they winning? Doing a lot of research from other markets. And then by doing that, what I did learn is it's a heavy lift in the beginning. The taxes are crazy. The licenses in a lot of other states were super expensive. And there's a lot of other things that go into starting a business, a manufacturing business, right? From the real estate to the equipment, to the staff, to the ingredients, to the insurance, to all the other things that go into operations. And what I really realize is that's not who we are, who I am as a CEO. I'm a branding person. I'm a marketer, right? I don't want to be, it wouldn't serve me best to be a manufacturing company. Because if I was a manufacturing company and I had that license, I want my machines running 24 hours a day, right? And I want to focus on that. And so what I looked at was, how do other industries operate? If I was to make a skincare, hair care, a food product, or whatever else at home, just like I was doing with this, what are my pathways to entry? How am I going to get in? And it was co-packing. It was like you develop at home, you create your recipes, you get your SOP right, and you go to a co-packer and create a licensing opportunity, licensing deal with them. where they manufacture and potentially sell and distribute your products, right? And out here in a lot of the other states, they really are pushing licensing, like get your own license. And to me, especially for the people going from legacy to legal, that's a huge risk. Not having a proven product and not having a ton of financing, right? And so I really stepped back and was like, wait a second. One, we have to create a brand. So that's why we really created the Chef for Hire brand a long time ago and trademarked it and started using the brand and was on social media very early so that we could get that recognition and have a pre-baked consumer base. So it's not so now that we go to dispensaries, people already know our brand. There's always a bud tender, 2 or 3 or 4 that already know us, if not the store owner, right? Because they've already heard of us. And then, so going back to the opportunity of getting in the market, I never wanted to have the license right away. One, because, like I said, it's a heavy lift and we haven't tested the products in market. Two, I also foresaw a lot of speed bumps in every market, right? Yeah. Tons of injunctions, lawsuits, hazards, pitfalls, like just all kinds of things that you just can't expect and don't know when they're going to happen. And so I didn't want to take anybody else's money either. So we're completely self-funded and independent right now. And the last part is, in New York, there's still not any brands that waited to get a license that are in the market yet. And the market's been open for a year and a half. So if you decided to wait, you couldn't be a first mover. So I wanted to ensure we were a first mover. So licensing was always the opportunity. And I really hope people understand that there's good and bad on both sides of it. There's not a perfect scenario, but if you haven't tested your product in market and to go out and try to get all of the money that you need to get into the market is such a bigger risk than licensing your product with a manufacturer, being able to focus on being a brand, building that out, getting the awareness and learning from there. And then if you get it to a point where you need a license and your product is really moving, you can still do that. You'll still have that opportunity. And so I just hope people don't rush in to lose their shirts in this space because it's very predatory, right? And nothing is set in stone. We're not even at the starting line of federal legalization. Everybody's trying to figure stuff out. There is going to be so many things that are going to get messed up. There's not one state that has this right yet. There is not a model. And so that was very important for us to show that we had the wherewithal, the understanding, the knowledge, the information, and strategy to enter this market as an independent brand, to then get our footing, create a foundation, and we're actually now about to start looking at getting, some investment. Because now I know exactly what we need investment for. Yes. Before, I didn't know that because the market didn't even know what it was doing. We didn't just got to 150 stores and it took like over 18 months to do that or whatever it is. So there's not even a lot of money in the market yet. So it's just a lot of different things I think that we need to understand, going from legacy to legal, going from a free enterprise market to a heavily super regulated and restricted market that's overtaxed with heavy competition and there's no brands yet. So we're already fighting for shelf space because New York is the biggest consumption market. So everybody wants to be here, but we only have 150 stores, right? And so it's a lot, and I can go on for hours about this topic. There's so much to unpack. And again, I really just want people to understand like the risks involved with getting in and licensing and everything else. Like really weigh out your options on both sides, because again, we're not even at the starting line yet.
It's a huge leap.
Yeah, it's going across the Grand Canyon. Like you're literally trying to jump the Grand Canyon, right? And then it's like pitfall. There's like snakes jumping up and like, alligators chomping at your legs.
Indiana Jones
people
type.
Trying to chop your... Exactly. It's just a lot. And like you said, nobody's trying to help you. Most people forget where they come from, and now it's only about making money. Well, what happened to the community? What happened to the solidarity? What happened to all the people we were advocating with? And now it's just, no, my bottom line. No, I need to do this. All right. We were supporting each other before. Where's that at now? So there's been a lot, man.
And I would love to talk more about that thread of community that you just brought, because community really is at the foundation, not just the foundation, but really like the mortar that glues together so much of the work that you do. And especially when thinking about building a brand like this, going through everything you just laid out, going from that legacy market, going through all of these steps, taking those risks, there has to be, and I think you're specifically the person who has said this to me before, you have to know your why. And you have to know why it is you are really passionate about this, and why it is you're sinking all of this money and all of this time and all of this effort and going through all of the red tape to put a brand forward. So I would love to have you speak to your why and how community keeps you rooted in that as you continue to expand and build the Chef for Hire brand.
Yeah. Now, I think my why was developed around when I started finding out about the endocannabinoid system, right? And then community really started to build, and the idea of communicating unity happened during the pandemic. You know, intentions are very important. What is your intention? And your intention, again, is your why. And like, what are you here to do? And for me, it was to share our oneness. When they came out and said nobody has immunity from COVID, I didn't look to the fear part. All I heard was unity. All I heard was that all of us are in this. Nobody is separated from this. We can all be affected by this. And then I looked up the words, and there's 13 words that have the word unity in it as compound words, and immunity is one of them. And so I looked at that as an opportunity to, instead of communicating our divisiveness, which is where we're at in this heavy divide and conquer space, especially in social media and other forms of media, it's all about separatism. It's all about dividing us, moving us, and having us against each other. So my intention was to say, that's cool, you guys can do that, but I'd rather be around and work with people that I'm connected to and have a connection with. And so I want to communicate unity and build community through that. And then it's like, all right, cool. And now we're in the same space. We're all like-minded. And once we have that feeling of unity, we can actually share and disseminate information, right? And through that, more people start doing this and using our products, or just cooking with it and putting it into food. It normalizes it, right? And so that's all it was really about. Is the intention is that we see each other, that we're not different, but we focus on our differences more than we focus on our similarities and where we connect. And if we keep doing that unintentionally, we're going to keep going down the same path. So let's do something intentionally, which is, again, communicate our unity. And that's really how community was built. And I try to do that really across the board. Like, you know, our supper clubs, I started calling them flights because it was about trust. When we started doing this, nobody was really cooking with cannabis the way we were. Nobody was really doing supper clubs. You didn't know the location till the day of the event. You didn't know who was going to be there till you walked in the door. You didn't know what the menu was till you sat at the table. That's a lot of trust. And what I looked at was, I was like, where else is there a lot of trust formed? And I started thinking about pilots and airplanes. You get on an airplane that takes you 37,000 feet in the air. You don't even see who the pilot is taking you there, but you trust that person.
Right.
Is going to get you there safely. And so again, I started calling the flight. So I was like, I'm your Captain Hawaii Mike. Welcome to Flight 710. Our flight attendants are Emily and Stacy. Our co-pilots in the kitchen are, and it really got people to this singular place. And that's really all it's about. Like, you put that energy in there through intention, you can move things around and create experiences. You don't have to be negative. You don't have to tear people down. You don't have to show our differences. You can just bring people together. And through that, I feel much more fulfilled overall, because I think a lot of the times what happens is people's intention when they build a company is a transaction.
Yes.
It's the bottom line. It's the money. It's, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to make millions of dollars. To me, it's the result of doing something great. It's the result of having a good product, having a good why and your intentions are there, good branding and whatever else it is, that's when you make money. But if your intention and your why is just to make money, I feel like you're standing on like hollow ground, like you're standing on something that can just be knocked down and broken. And we wanted to be able to stand on a foundation that was strong so we can continuously grow and not just grow up, but grow out as well and expand.
Back in a flash with more Jazz Cabbage.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. There's a reason when you think of Wisconsin, you think cheese. Cheese is a huge part of Wisconsin's history and future. In Wisconsin, the state of cheese, the tradition of cheese-making excellence began 180 years ago, before Wisconsin was recognized as a state. Immigrants traveled to settle in this lush green hills of Wisconsin, bringing their cheese-making traditions with them. These storied skills, combined with the freshest milk available, created a cheese-making culture that is uniquely Wisconsin. Wisconsin's 1,200 cheesemakers, many of whom are third and fourth generation, continue to pass on old-world traditions while adopting modern innovations in cheese-making craftsmanship. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
Welcome back, my little cabbages, to more Jazz Cabbage. Absolutely. It's about intention and it's about reciprocity too, because when we think about money as this kind of end all be all, it's very static. It's just one thing, you go, you get the money, and that's it. But when you're thinking more largely about money as this sort of form of energy, this form of transference, this form of reciprocity, and you take the time to build out that community, to build out the connection, build out the reciprocity through every step of the way, then of course the money's going to come to you because you're already operating and vibrating in that frequency where you're attracting the things that you need, as opposed to having that tunnel vision and only focusing on that one thing at the very end. And then maybe you do get there and then you're sitting there like, okay, so what's next? And there's no larger fulfillment around that. So it's really always so enlightening and so encouraging to me to hear you speak about the intentionality that goes behind everything you do, because it's very clear, as someone who has not only worked with the Chef for Hire products in the kitchen. People ask me all the time, like, oh, do you infuse food at home? Like, what do you make? Do you do your own infusions? I say, no, I never make my own infusions anymore because there are smarter people than me who know how to make them, and I can just go to the dispensary and buy them and not have to worry about that. But also because there's so much intention built into how versatile the products are able to be and how many different applications and how many different uses there are. So I want to talk a little bit more about this culinary side of things, because as you mentioned, you're a completely self-taught chef. And even in that path of being self-taught, all of the intention that you've brought into it has really led you to creating dishes and dining experiences that I think are unlike anything I've ever experienced. And I am a food journalist. I've gone to a lot of dinners, infused or otherwise. I've eaten my way around town. And there is really just this beautiful energy. And like you said, this trust that is built through the experiences you curate, not only through how the environment is set, but also through how you dose the food, and also through the intention and the layers of thought behind every single dish. So I would love to hear you speak to your culinary influences and your culinary creative process and how that's all informed by this unity that you put forward.
So I've been cooking since I was 9, and I got into cooking because my mom raised me vegan, and growing up in Hawaii, food was very social. You know, we had these lunch trucks, you get plate lunch from them, and it was something that I just felt I missed out on. Like after sport, I was always eating something different. So I guess it was my FOMO. And throughout high school and I was just always cook for people and friends, but I never had this idea of wanting my own restaurant or anything like that. It was just something I enjoyed because I really love food. I love to eat and I love trying new things. I think that if I would have gone to culinary school, if I would have tried, or if I would have had experience as a chef before, I don't think it would have worked the same. I wouldn't have had the same curiosity, right? A lot of the times when you see chefs, especially in this new age of the celebrity chef and the television shows and all this other stuff, a lot of it becomes, look at me. Look what I can do that you can't do. I'm above you. I'm better than you. And for me, it was more like, look at me. I'm dressed just like you are. Like, I used to wear my street clothes in the kitchen. Not even just street, I would be fly in the kitchen, right? I still am. And part of that was, again, to normalize it. I don't want to be above you. I want to be eye level with you. I want to be your equal in that sense, because just as great as you think I am, you can be too. And I'm sure there's something I look at for you where I'm like, shit, you're great at that. I want to learn how to do that. And it being more eye level like that, to me, opens up again that communication. It creates bridges, it creates connections, it creates those energy transferences, or opportunity for energy transferences. And so I really wanted to make sure we were open that way. The other part was, during the 90s in the music industry, everybody started getting corporate cards. So we used to just go smoke our faces off and go eat at every restaurant we could. And I have multiple different types of experiences and moments and memories that I have from all kinds of different, restaurants and eateries and hole in the walls and Michelin starred restaurants and everything else. And it's like, at the end of the day, the guest wants to feel and have a memorable experience, period. I don't care where it is. And food, it's almost like a pin in your timeline of life. You can go back to when you ate something for the first time, and you'll have a memory of that, and the person and the place and the restaurant and whatever it was. Similar to music, it imprints in us. And so I wanted people to leave with that kind of experience, with something that was just different. And again, my curiosity, I think, coupled with my own knowledge of my own personal experiences, and me being enough of an asshole to say, like, no, I need things a certain way, and I expect this, and I want that. And it just became my alchemy. Like, it just became something that I wanted to really create. And I wanted to turn anything that I touched into a form of gold, right? And that gold is the memorable experience. And I'm actually listening. It's so amazing how I'm just in this place of surrender right now. So all these things just keep popping up in this interestingly timely fashion. And I'm listening to Unreasonable Hospitality right now, the story about 11 Madison Park.
Yeah.
And we're at a point where he was talking about how he hires the staff. And he's like, I don't want the most experienced people from these industries. I want people who want to be the best and learn and are curious. And I'm like, shit, that was me. That's what I thought. And that's how I want to hire. And so it just reinforces, because you're looking at 11 Madison Park, is one of the best restaurants in the world. And you're like, shit, my ethos and how I'm thinking and how I'm approaching this is very similar. I'm not saying we're fine dining in that sense, but there's a lot of fine dining elements that we put into our execution, right? When we were doing our supper clubs, it was serve from the left, pick up from the right, right? It was never folded arms or never stand still. Don't always be present. There's always somebody you can talk to. There's always somebody you can give attention to. There's always something to do to make the experience as seamless as possible for the guests and as memorable as possible. So all of those things are very important to me. It's fun. Like, we changed every single menu during our supper clubs just to see how unique we could make them, just to see how thematic we can make them, but also, like I said before, to show that we can infuse anything. And that would bring people back. And one of my favorite compliments that I get is, yo, I never eat this, but I'll eat yours all the time. People have told me they don't eat salads, but I used to always have a salad. There's always a salad at our dinners. And I was like, nah, but Joe, the way you made this and you season it like this and that. And again, it goes back to the intentionality. And the other part that I didn't say is eating is a full sensory experience, right? Yes. And it's one of the few full sensory experiences that we have on a constant basis that we do with other people, right? Like most of us don't have group sex constantly, which is a full sensory experience. Sex is a very sensual experience. But eating, you use your smell, you use your touch, and you use your eyesight before you even taste. Those senses are stimulated. And then you get to taste, and then you have like other senses like anticipation or memories pop up. And so it just, again, once you heighten the senses, and anything psychoactive will heighten your senses as well. And then you couple that with the energy of intention, and then it's a symphony. And you're just orchestrating these experiences and putting it all together. And again, it just became my alchemy. It just became something that I was able to take in something that was new or even mundane for people and flip that into something. And it has been such a fulfilling thing to even hear people still talk about dinners from 2015, 16. Oh, bro, they'll hit me every once in a while on DM. I came to one of these dinners and it was one of the best experiences I ever had. And it's like, that's how I feel when I used to go to certain restaurants too, you know? And so I'm just grateful, man, that people get to have these experiences and reflect that kind of energy.
And like you said, it really becomes a part of our memory. It becomes that pin on the timeline, and it affects us at a cellular level. It really does. When you have a great experience, especially with food, it really gets into your bones. It becomes a part of you. And especially when you're dealing, like you said, with a psychoactive substance like THC, and you're elevating people's consciousness in that way, you're really able to open yourself up in ways that you wouldn't have necessarily expected. Even at an uninfused dinner, if you have a great time, you're open to new people. But my favorite thing about an infused dinner is when people come in by themselves. I go to a lot of these dinners alone, and I come in with no expectations, and I leave with 10 new best friends. And it's always this really beautiful communal experience because we're trying something new. We're meeting new people. We're finding this openness that I think food allows us to approach that we might not approach in other ways of our lives. We might be more hesitant to try a new haircut or to go to a new barber shop or bookstore or something, but trying new foods is something that we can often challenge ourselves to. But even trying old foods in a new way is something that really opens up our minds as well. Like you said, people who don't necessarily eat salads. What really excites me about infusing cannabis into food, and especially using products like the Chef for Hire cooking essentials, is that people can approach cannabis from their own comfort zone. They can approach cannabis from their own place of understanding and from their own cultural background. Something that's exciting for me is when someone is like, oh, well, I don't really smoke, I don't really interact with cannabis, but then maybe they have infused cheesy grits, maybe they have an infused barbecue sauce on a rib, maybe they have something infused that is familiar to them. And not only are they having that really beautiful moment of culinary familiarity, but they're getting a new experience on top of that. And so with the versatility and the ease of use of the Chef for Hire products, from the honey to the olive oil, the coconut oil, the ghee, why was it important for you to put these sort of culinary building blocks into the market? And also, what are some of your favorite applications for the different products?
I guess it was important because everybody eats, right? And I think it's a great entry point for us humans, especially the ones that are kind of on the fence or outside of the fence looking in, going, I've never really experienced cannabis before and I'm kind of curious. But it's also such a different feeling. Like, we are categorized as tinctures, but we're also categorized as edibles. We are both of those things, but we're also different.
Yeah.
Because you can also be a topical, right? We're also superfoods. And the actual culinary aspect where you're eating and you're incorporating this into your diet, I have seen it affect people so different. Because the thing about eating a small edible is that whole dose is in this small piece, and usually a sugar-based product that metabolizes very quickly through your system. So you get hit with the whole thing at once. Whereas when you're eating a coursed out meal that may have 25, 30, even 50 milligrams, if we went that high, it's incremental. And so even the way that your body absorbs it and processes it, it isn't all at once. And I think that's what really scares people is that all of a sudden they went from I'm just chilling to, oh my God, I'm smacked. And at a dinner, or even if you're just eating at home, it's going to take a while for it to go through your liver and break down and go through your stomach and get through everything, right? And so it also processes from delta 9 to hydroxy 11 and actually magnifies the effects, right? So you get this really interesting full body high because you're also getting sublingual because you're chewing and then the food staying in your mouth. And then you get a faster acting, and then it hits your system as you metabolize it, and then it kind of slows it down a bit, but it's almost like a drip. And then you start to not think about it. You're having these conversations, and all of a sudden you are that high, but it doesn't feel the same because of the onset. And so that's one thing I think is very interesting. The other part is, as far as the versatility, is that, like I said before, these are all superfoods. So even before you infuse them with THC and get those kind of benefits from the cannabinoids, olive oil is incredible for brain function and brain health. It's great for your skin and your hair. You talk about the Mediterranean diet, right? They're just taking a spoonful of olive oil every day or just drizzling olive oil on everything. So it's very important for us to source high quality, organic, or locally sourced products every time we can because we want the natural benefits, right? So it's organic, it's virgin. You're getting the coconut flavor and smell and everything in the coconut oil. So doing things like topicals, right? My father just rubs the coconut oil on pain points or anywhere he's sore.
Oh, yeah, I put it in my hair sometimes. It's really great.
Right? And then oil pulling. We smoke. We damage our mouth, our teeth, our gums. Oil pulling is great for that. And then you get the nice high from it. And the other part is that it's versatile in the sense of dosage. I can do my 30 milligrams in a tablespoon, but I can also do 1.25 milligrams in an eighth of a teaspoon. And we pretty much all have measuring spoons at home. So empowering people with this information, with the ability to dose for themselves, with the ability to cook for themselves and learn about it in a different way and learn about the effects in a different way. Because smoking it's an interesting thing for me. Like, I love smoking, but it also can be too heavy sometimes in a sense that, like, it just knocks me out. I just want to sleep, or it's just a lot. And then it's like a fast up and then a fast down. And consuming edibles through diet and eating cannabis through diet, it's a much like more steady, longer kind of flow. And people are like, well, I don't want to be high that long. I'm always high, right? It doesn't mean you have to be smacked, right? What is your high? Like, what is your functioning high? And that's why, again, going back to the dosage, it's versatile. If you only want 1.25 milligrams, which you do coconut oil pulling and you use a tablespoon, just put that eighth of a teaspoon first and finish the rest of it with non-infused. And it's super simple. Now I have a super low dose that's perfect for my tolerance and my needs in this time, and you're good. You don't have that ability with smoking. It's different. You can take a hit and just put it out, but now you're dealing with the carcinogens and relighting it and doing all these other things that we still don't know, right? And so when we were starting, a lot of this was being used like 10 years ago was for terminally ill friends, parents and stuff that may have been dealing with disease or anything else. And it would help them. And again, the intention, the energy, and using this function, it could be like whatever dose that they needed. Taking a teaspoon of honey was great. And now they can go eat a meal if that's what they needed, or they can go to sleep, or they had some pain relief. And so again, like, it's versatile because you can use it in so many different ways, right? This joint, I'm only smoking this joint. I'm not going to eat the joint, right? The vape pen, I'm only hitting the vape pen. I'm not putting the vape pen into a meal. And so we should have a full spectrum of opportunities and different ways that we can consume, because we all have individual needs and preferences, right? And so we wanted people to be able to have that as well and give you something to offer, again, that was different, that again was superfoods and had natural health benefits to it, and again was versatile. So that's how we got there.
And that's what I love in general about this intersection of food and cannabis, but really specifically about these incredible products that you've developed, is that everyone has their own personal entry point. And it's never about, I tell people that I write about food and cannabis and they're like, oh, so you just want everyone to be stoned. That is not the truth. What I want is for everyone to find their point of entry and their point of access to be able to engage with this plant medicine that the earth gives us, that we have these natural receptors for in our body, and to at least empower people to make informed decisions as a consumer to say, hey, this actually sounds like something I'm really aligned with. I want to go for that. Or, you know what? That doesn't really sound right for me at this time. I'm going to pass. But to at least be able to make that decision from an informed standpoint and not just be told what to consume, how much of it to consume. And that's a lot of, especially when we think about the edibles market as a whole, it's mostly just high dosage gummies. And that's not for everyone. And that's not how everybody wants to interact with cannabis. I personally, I don't eat candy. I don't eat a lot of sugar. And so only having gummies or chocolate bars as the option isn't necessarily going to do it for me, as opposed to I put a half teaspoon of Chef for Hire honey in my morning tea, and now I'm just easing into my day in this really beautiful, gradual way. That doesn't mean that I have to add something that wasn't already a part of my routine. And so being able to approach in that way is so beautiful and really helps more people to be able to access, like I said, this incredible plant medicine, whether they're using it specifically for the big medicinal benefits, for anxiety, for sleep, for pain management, or whether they're just using it recreationally and had a hard day at work and want to just put some olive oil on top of some toast and really relax into their evening. So it's really incredible that not only these products exist, first of all, but that there's so much intention behind them and that there are so many ways that people can interact with them. And so as we prepare to wrap this conversation up, I really just want to ask you about your dreams, hopes, visions for the future of Chef for Hire as you continue to build out the product base, but also as you continue to roll out your work with Fly Private Social, which is your incredible social club in Brooklyn, as you continue to do more dinners. What's coming down the pipeline?
I guess my dreams and hopes are, one, to kind of tie back to what you were saying before, like cannabis is an individual experience. It affects all of us differently, just like food in our taste buds. And so I really want people to learn and educate themselves, right, about their own personal journeys, personal experience, personal needs, because we're bombarded with marketing BS constantly and being sold like these blanket things that aren't necessarily true. And so, one, my hope is that we can really educate ourselves and be more educated as consumers and participators of cannabis for our own benefit, right? And then, two, I would love to see, eventually us be able to do restaurants really that have the option for infused dining. I don't see that any different than having a restaurant where you can go and there's people at the table and one person chooses to drink and the other person doesn't, or they're not old enough to drink, right? But we demonize this so much and make it so negative, even though our bodies actually naturally create cannabinoids. I would love to see the fear mongering dissipate and disappear. But that's going to take, again, what I said before, people to kind of educate themselves. I mean, I would like to see this in hospitality a lot more. There's huge opportunities there for experiences and revenue, and developing more revenue for these companies and these businesses that kind of need it. And I would like to see it start those small. Like, I would love to see like the bed and breakfasts and the independent restaurants not be the big chains and all these other people, and really started from that kind of level and create this space where we can actually do these things. And it doesn't feel like it's this fear thing, right? Oh, you're just trying to get people smacked all the time. Oh, you just want people high all the time. No, you be able to choose yourself. That's like saying every alcohol company just wants everybody drunk. Right. No, They want you to be able to keep drinking for a long time. They don't want you to be killing yourself tomorrow, because then they lose out on the revenue. They want you to be more responsible and drink. And it's the same kind of thing here, but this one actually has benefits for you. Right. Whereas alcohol doesn't really have many benefits for us. And be communal, and let's share information. Let's hold each other up. Let's create solidarity, because they're trying to keep us out as best they can. They don't want us in. I hope we can deschedule this plant and free it and allow us all access to it. It's wild that we have all these lobbying going on behind closed doors, because my guess is that all the big MSOs, all they want is for big pharma and big tobacco to come and buy them, right?
Yep.
That's, to me, all they want. And that's why we're having this Schedule 3 conversation. So I'm hoping we educate ourselves on that side. I hope we use our voices. I hope we stand up, again, in solidarity within our markets, and then hopefully within our larger federal market when we can, because they're just going to start knocking us down and cherry picking us. They want to move this over to pharmaceutical. They want to move this over to prescription. They want to move this over so it's controlled substance still, but they can take the revenue from it and just move us out. And so my hope is that we have a free market eventually, and that's taxed in a way where we can actually have a business that actually makes sense. And we're able to build and thrive and have the kind of companies that we want to have. Look how many craft beer companies there are now.
Right.
But it took so long for that industry to get there. And so I don't even know if this will happen in my lifetime. I don't know. But we have enough information of other industries and other prohibition and other things of that nature, and even non-controlled and controlled substances, where we should be able to do this and create, again, a free enterprise market where we can operate and be entrepreneurs and have an opportunity to create our own businesses and grow and thrive.
Absolutely. Because as you said, a huge part of it is combating the fear mongering. And a big part of that is being educated and being informed. Because something I'm often saying to people when it comes to federal legalization, if we're not informed and if we're not active, we're either getting Pfizer weed or we're getting Walmart weed. And neither of those are the kind of thing that I'm trying to go for. And it's important.
Or Dwayne Reed.
Or Dwayne, exactly. And it's important as someone who is in the food space and is intentional about supporting local markets, going to the farmers market, supporting organic farms, that I'm also bringing this mentality over to supporting small cannabis farms, supporting small cannabis business, supporting organic grows, supporting intentional grows, because people who are aware of how bastardized our food system has become are aware of all of the little ways in which these corporate interests can really blind us and detach us from the people who are producing our food and the intention or lack thereof that is behind it. And then now you start to see all these years down the road, all of these health problems and these communal societal health problems that we're getting because of the corners that have been cut in food. And if we aren't using that as a warning signal and a premonition as we turn to federally legalized cannabis, we're going to see some stuff down the line that we don't necessarily want to see. So I am so grateful to have you on the show, to have you share your time, your expertise, your wisdom, your just passion. And it's always a pleasure to be able to chat with you, Hawaii Mike. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it, Chala.
And before I let you go, where can our listeners find you and your work?
So we're redoing the website, but it's still up. So Chef for Hire, HIGHER.com. Chef for Hire on Instagram. And then we're pretty much in, a lot of the dispensaries in New York City. And you can find us in a lot of them. Check your local dispensary if you're in New York. And if they don't have our product, ask for it, please. Because we want to be in the right stores where communities really want our products and be able to serve you guys.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Check out our show notes to learn more about our guests and other cannabis resources. Jazz Cabbage is produced by Taylor Early, H. Conley, and me, Chala June. Sound design and mixing is by Sam Gerardi. Jazz Cabbage is powered by Simplecast. Jazz Cabbage, hosted by Chala June, is a production of Heritage Radio Network. Food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe. For more Jazz Cabbage shenanigans, find us on Instagram at jazzcabbagepod. If you want to drop me a note, you can write to the pod at jazzcabbagepodcast@gmail.com.